Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fathoms Deep, a Black Sails podcast from Common Room Radio. I'm Liz Stevens.
I'm Daphne Olive, and I've got to say, this is the guest we always dreamed about having and never knew we would have. We have Louise Barnes with us, back from the grave.
Hi, it's so lovely to be here.
We miss Miranda.
Oh, I miss her too.
God, what a wonderful character. She brought so much beauty to that show and
yes.
Such an extra dimension and dynamic that was absolutely lost when we lost her, which of course we had to. I understand from the storytelling perspective why we had to, but you anchored Flint so beautifully, or she did. Anyway, it's lovely. It was such a joy to watch.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it was definitely one of my best, if not my best acting jobs I've ever had. It was a character where everything just kind of fit from the beginning. It just it felt right. And I got her without necessarily being her. You know, I'm not necessarily like her in real life, but I think it was partly because the character was just so beautifully drawn. You know,
yes.
She was, and then it becomes that symbiotic relationship, right? Where you kind of, the writers are feeding off you and you're
yes.
bringing, so it was a beautiful role for me, and I miss her desperately.
I'll bet.
She's pretty wonderful. I was just thinking about it last night that when you get down to it, I mean, I love a lot of characters and I'm very vocal about the characters that I love, but I realized when I thought about it, Miranda's the only character that I actually would have probably been friends with. She was the one character,
sure.
You know what I mean? Okay, sure. I've been very vocal about wanting to hang out with Jack Rackham, but that's...
Can't actually trust the guy. Yeah,
no,
sure.
Exactly. But Miranda, I started thinking, I was like, Miranda's the one character who's a person that if I met her today, and I feel like kind of you could meet her today, which is also an interesting aspect of her character.
Yeah.
I would be like, let's totally be friends. And you can, depending on which part of her life we could read books together, or she could play piano and drink tea with me.
Well, I mean, she was the only one who wasn't wielding a sword, right, at some point or other. So perhaps that contributes to your sense that maybe you could have been friends with her. All the other people were very, very definitely in that pirate world. You know, they were, and she was the link. I guess that was her function, was to tether Flint to James McGraw, to civilization, to those sorts of ideals, which is why she had to go.
Yeah, yes,
that is why she had
well,
to go.
She herself was so isolated and caught between those two worlds. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So I had a thought, actually, when I was coming up with questions, that in a way we kind of have to ask you a lot of the questions where you perhaps need to answer as Miranda Hamilton and also as Miranda Barlow, because I feel like some of the questions will have different, and it's funny because I feel like that's something that never came out when we were talking in the podcast. And we've talked about Miranda in so many ways, and we've talked so much about James in terms of duality of his Flint and his McGraw, but Miranda has a duality as well. I mean, and it's funny. I just feel it now. I want to go back to seasons 1 and 2 and talk about that, or we could just do it here. But it is interesting that Miranda. There are two Mirandas in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, I think that she lost herself to a certain extent. I mean, I think that living in Nassau, she couldn't continue to be who she was, and I think probably her life as it was in London changed so radically with Thomas being taken away, and then immediately them leaving and going to Nassau, that probably part of her kind of grieving process was that kind of nothingness of the first probably few years in Nassau, where she couldn't be that person that she was. She'd lost all of that, and losing Thomas and losing that life, she didn't have access to who she was then. I don't know. I mean, it's something that, you know, it'd be nice to have kind of like a spin-off show, you know.
Yes.
the early years, Nassau, the early years. to see what actually happened in that time.
Because it was a long time.
It was, yeah. It was I think it was sort of 6 years or so it was long. It was 10.
No, it was,
10.
It was 10 because season 1 is 1715 and the flashbacks are 1705.
5.
It's a long time for that lonely life that she had.
No wonder the sex was so bad. I mean, it was just...
Right? Man.
Wow, was it bad.
Yeah.
That's always a fascinating thing when people start watching it. They're like, what is up with this show and sex? And I'm just like, this will all make sense.
Yes.
Well, for me, it was always the thing of, do I tell people that I'm doing this show? Because South Africa didn't get to see it until it was kind of 3 seasons in. And then they were starting at the beginning. So I was doing this stuff. And then the first season I had a couple of sex scenes, and people would go, I've just started watching Black Sails. And I'd immediately sort of go, oh God, how far are they into it? Yeah. how much of me have they actually seen? Physically, my body.
Right. Yeah.
Pretty much all of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd have this anxiety about meeting parents at school, and them saying, fathers saying, I saw you on Black Sails, and their eyes just slowly drifting down me, and I'm like, yeah, okay, so you're that far into the season. That never happened, but it was a kind of thing I got a little bit paranoid about.
I can see that.
I never thought about that. But now you're in LA, so it doesn't matter because that's just like everyone, no?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
That's true.
It doesn't matter now. Now, have you seen that? There was a cool little, I don't know what you call it, a little video, I suppose, of an actor accepting a job in a show and telling her family what she had to do. Mm-hmm. And she's like, no, and I have to have sex with this person, and then I get into a lesbian relationship with that person, and then I get raped, and then she says, and they sort of aghast, and she says, but it's on HBO, and they're like, oh, it's on HBO, fantastic, well done,
That is hilarious.
So it all becomes completely legitimate if it's on HBO.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Or any cable network these days.
Or Stars.
Yeah, or Stars. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of nudity.
Yes, there is. But it was interesting for us. That definitely was. Liz and I have talked about this quite a bit. Like that was for us part of the impediment in the beginning to each of us wanting to go down this road, and then we went down it obviously pretty wholeheartedly. Yeah.
And I mean, I know it can sound kind of cliched, but it really felt like the sex scenes in the show were not gratuitous.
Oh, yes. Not at all.
We completely agree.
There was always so much. It was another way of telling the story.
Right. Absolutely.
And taking the relationships further and establishing dynamics. And I mean, that amazing scene between Anne and Max and Rackham and that threesome of theirs. It wasn't just a threesome. If that's all you wanted to see, that's all you'd see. But it was that connection.
It's all about character, right?
I mean, it was.
A whole shifting of power happened in that bed. No, it's amazing.
Yes, and the bad sex with Miranda and Flint was also just so moving and so, palpable loneliness,
so heartbreaking.
Yeah, desperate to connect, desperate to kind of hang on to. And what other, and very few other pleasures probably to be had, and even that certainly was not fulfilling. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, we talked about that quite. I mean, it's true. Miranda, one of my favorite characters, Miranda, heartbreaking in life, and then continued to haunt, like not just haunting Flint, like continued to haunt us in the form of clocks and teacups and pianos throughout the whole series, right up until the end.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was what she was in the 4th season, right? She was teacups. She was the teacup. That's who she was. She was this connection to domesticity, to fragility and kind of
Well, and that's the thing that was interesting for me is that it's so interesting. You used the word tether, which of course becomes a very important word for Silver and Maddie. But Miranda was the tether. But what's interesting is that Flint or James, it's so hard. I always struggle with which version of his name to use, but James lost Miranda. So that was it was almost like a rope fraying, not a clean cut. It feels like to me, like that he lost physical Miranda right after kind of regaining her. And I definitely want to talk about season 2 and what goes on with their relationship. Yeah. But then we have season 3 and the dream sequences, or
where they
hauntings.
are still connected, right? They're still,
right.
But like you say, this image of an unraveling, like yeah.
And it's not even done then. Like, she says goodbye, but then the house continues to be that all through season 4. I mean, that, well, in the end of season 3, when he brings Vane there in particular, I mean, it's just like Miranda's house becomes the surrogate for Miranda. And so, and we watch that then deteriorate and become less and less the space that the two of them.
Yeah.
And then literally burn to the ground.
And then literally burn to the ground.
Yes.
I have to come clean and tell you that I have not seen all of season 4.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
I've seen the first episode and I've seen the last episode, but I have not seen the ones in between.
Wow.
Wow.
So
okay, so we're just telling you stuff you know. I'm sorry. I mean, except you've seen the end, so you know the end.
I've seen the end, so I know where it ends, but I'm still really.
That's so interesting. Yeah. So you saw the broken teacup. You saw like all of Billy's hoard in there in the first episode, and the broken teacup. Yeah. And then and I
saw the stuff in season 3. Obviously, there's
give us your submission. And we'll
There's some lovely stuff with Miranda's house mid-season. You're going to really enjoy it, I think.
Oh my goodness.
It's really beautiful.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. There's there's just some Eleanor and Maddie stuff there. And
Okay.
Yes.
You'll appreciate it.
Miranda's house is a character in season 4.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I look forward to it. I wish I'd been in it, but I'll die. I'll make do with the house.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, just so you know, in fact, in the culture of our podcast world, of our community of Fathoms Deep, pretty much like all anyone ever has to say is teacup or clock.
Yes.
On Twitter. And then just like whole, weeping conversations happen.
Yes.
Yeah. It was pretty intense. It was pretty intense. And then doing those scenes with Nick.
How was that?
It was hard for him to kind of watch me have my head blown off.
I imagine so, yes.
Yeah. And also just to, I guess, because in those scenes, it was all about Miranda and James.
Right.
And at odds with him, and so it was a kind of a strange dynamic, and Nick and I were going through our own stuff with our family, stuff at that point, and we were all good. The two of us were all good, but it was I just had a miscarriage actually.
Oh,
so we were doing that scene after I just had a miscarriage. So it was
God.
it was this sense of loss, and I was losing this character as well, and the family of the show. And my God, it was so.
Oh my God,
it was all so dramatic.
Yes.
Yeah. So it was all very intense, and boundaries were difficult, but it was so good because it felt like it could bring so much to that moment, and it needed that kind of desperate. And I guess that's what you do as actors, right? You bring up you dredge up all your stuff, and you deliver it on this altar for the show. Wow. And I'm glad it was a show worth doing it for. I would never have done it if it wasn't.
No,
was that cathartic for you?
I think it was. Yeah, to have to. Because often, I mean, I've felt as an actress, it's quite hard to access that stuff.
Yes.
Because when you read it, you're often there. You're completely there. You read the script the first time and you feel everything, and then there's the process you go through of learning the words and then all the technical aspects on the day. Very often those things take you away from being able to access the stuff. So to feel like I had kind of done it justice was good. Yeah, it was good.
You absolutely did.
Yeah.
That moment is it's very inspiring to a lot of people. And
when we were recording through through most of it actually, I was going through divorce and realizing that I'd been in an abusive relationship for a long time and really controlling, and so there were times when we'd be talking about some scene that had happened in Black Sails, and I would realize even as we were talking just how much of myself. I mean, the work and the art of the storytelling of Black Sails and that the actors had done became sacred, became like church to me, and illuminating these different spots in my life that had been broken or messed up. And so I got a lot of just being able to talk about the scenes gave me a lot of
therapy,
catharsis.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I understand
Absolutely.
that, at least from some level, just being able to work through and process through an emotion that you're feeling on such a deep level, that getting another spot to externalize it that really has nothing to do with you actually has something really cleansing about that, and again, illuminating.
Yeah. No, and Miranda, for Liz's sake, was a huge part of Liz's process.
Yeah.
Honestly.
That's what good stories do, right?
Yes, that is exactly what good stories do.
They not only highlight or speak to parts of our lives, but they also give us an idea of where we want to go and what's possible.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. This has come up many times in the podcast, but I'm so far removed from my first experience of the first 3 seasons, because I watched them many times before we even did this. But the thing that always amazes me with Black Sails in particular is how it often takes you emotionally in places that you didn't expect you were going to go. It wasn't not just resonating with the emotions you already have. Like there's some things where it is cathartic, where it's like, I love to cry because I get that crying thing out. Yeah. And that's really fun. I love that in storytelling also. That's an amazing thing when like you kind of know where your emotion's going to go, but you're like, I'm in the mood for this right now. I want to laugh, or I want to cry, or I want the thing that takes Black Sails to a completely different place, for me at least, but I think for a lot of people, is that how many times my emotions end up being somewhere I didn't expect. Like even if you told me, or even when I rewatch and I know what's going to happen in the story, somehow my emotions end up going places that I completely didn't expect them to go. Yeah. And that's taking storytelling to a completely different level as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, for sure. And then also the aspect of it, which is almost like philosophy, right? Which is taking people into thoughts and ideas about darkness, about purpose, about demons, about all of that stuff, which potentially a whole lot of the audience that the show would normally draw don't ever really engage with. And to give them a way into that is, I think, extraordinary.
Absolutely. Right, because the story lets you experience that stuff without it being just taught to you. Because you're experiencing it. You're not just being told it. Yeah. And that's another amazing thing that storytelling offers humans.
Yeah.
Yes. And this is such a human show. And really, truly, in the course of watching it, my entire worldview shifted. And it became an access point for really a person I'd been all along and had been stifling or being allowed to be stifled. And so there was some religious, I don't know. I might even say religious abuse. That feels strong, but close. But so many things that that this show helped me to just ask myself more honest questions and to allow for the first time for different answers. Yeah. I don't know how much I want to go into all of that, but it's a big deal.
Yeah. All right. No, it is. It is. And the thing is, I mean, I can just listen to the opening sequence, the music, and I'm already in it. I'm already like, oh my God, this show is amazing.
It is. It really is.
It gives us such joy that, I mean, it's so amazing. I mean, I can't imagine how amazing it is for you all to have been involved in something you love that much, but like, it's pretty amazing for us who are so affected by this to know that it's you all too. Like there is something really beautiful about that there is this kind of community of people who feel very deeply about the show that includes the people who made it and the people who experience it. And I don't know, I feel like that's one of the neat things about our year of getting to meet so many of you all, is like seeing, I don't know, there's just something super gratifying about that, and something really beautiful about it as well. This kind of community of people who love this beautiful thing.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And rare as well, because I mean, you as a member of this industry, you learn to play the game. You talk about shows you're involved in, and you can see it on interviews that people do. Oh no, she was amazing to work with, and there's the kind of self-congratulatory stuff that goes on, and it was a great show, and I love being part of it, and all of that stuff that people do because it's what you do. You promote your show,
right?
So. To actually be involved in something where you truly believe in it. I mean, as I said earlier on, I think before we started, it's a rarity. It's unusual.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and it showed in the product, I think, the way that everyone was connected to it and how much they had personally invested in it showed on screen. It had a heartbeat to it that most television doesn't have.
Yeah. All right. Can I ask you some of my questions for you?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Let's talk. I know this sounds like the three of us could just sit here and talk about black sails generally for like the rest of the day, but I do have some Miranda specific questions.
Okay.
What is your vision of the dream sequences in season 3? Like, do you see these as existing in James's head, or do you feel like Miranda was actually haunting him?
Yeah, I mean, what we were going for when we were doing them was this idea that what Miranda was for Flint in real life, she continued to be for him in his mind after her death. So, but at the same time, there was very definitely a prophetic kind of side to it, or a leading. There's stuff that couldn't have just been in his subconscious, or it wasn't just part. She wasn't just part of his psyche. It wasn't like a dream, where you in dreams you project things that have actually happened to you, or you put together thoughts. Well, that's the sort of psychoanalytic understanding of dreams, the Jungian sort of idea of dreams. So it wasn't just that. There was an element of prophecy in it. And so I don't know. I don't know that it needs to be that clear.
No, not at all. I was just curious what you had to say about it.
No, absolutely. And it was what I think I touched on a little bit earlier, maybe before we started recording, was that to play the scenes was difficult because we didn't want her to be Miranda.
Right.
So I couldn't speak with the emotion that Miranda spoke with. I had to be much more neutral, because the idea that we were going for was that she was a projection of his. It was his projection of her. So it was difficult to play the scenes, and it was impossible for me to do that, to not have some kind of emotion. I mean, that scene in the boat where he turns around and he looks at her and he says, "I miss you." I mean, there's no way that I could say that.
Right.
I could say that being Miranda without it being, "Oh my God, I miss you too."
Right.
So so that had to come through. But I think that with all the sort of the cinematic effects that were created, what ended up being the result was this eerie kind of voice from the grave, guiding perhaps that sort of that kind of part of you that's left when you die, that's still, that you can if someone that you love dies, you can still hear what they would have said in this situation. Yep. Even if that situation never happened, you still can project what they would say.
Right.
Absolutely.
Because you know them so well, and their bond was, I don't know. I mean, part of that probably is me just wishful thinking, that I wanted her to be there to help him. I wanted her to be there to.
Well, I think she was there to help him. I mean, she did guide him through.
She did. She stopped him from giving up, and she told him that there was a greater purpose, and that it wasn't time for him to join her.
And that he wasn't alone.
That he wasn't alone.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I feel like, those scenes, amazing. Okay, now I have a question. Let's go. Or like I said in the beginning, let's talk about Miranda Hamilton a tiny bit.
That woman.
Yeah, I like that woman. She seems like she's a lot of fun.
Oh,
pretty fantastic. Yep, kind of my girl.
Yeah, I know. I totally want to talk literature and like go to like balls with her or whatever.
Right.
I'm not really the ball going type, but for her, I would totally do it. Yes, you are, Liz. So I have a question. So my main question, well, no, I have a lot of questions about Miranda Hamilton, but one of them for me has been, how invested was she in the dream? Like, I know that she's very invested in both Thomas and James. And there's the speech that she gives to James, which was partly flirting and partly saying, my husband's awesome. The whole great men are made great.
Yeah.
But how much was she invested in the actual dream, like the actual Nassau part of it, the thing that Thomas wanted to do and that James, from like my impression has been that she was so invested in these people and she liked the kind of philosophy behind the thing, but that she wasn't necessarily like she wanted to protect them more than she wanted the thing, obviously.
Yeah. I think that's absolutely it. I think that there's that scene where Thomas is talking to Peter Ash and they're planning and plotting and she comes and she says, okay, I'm leaving town. I want to go because it's getting too much, and he's coming back and Flint's coming back, or McGraw's coming back. And then he comes back and they have that whole thing and she sees the plan happening and she can see where it's going, and she calls McGraw into the study and she just says, stop it now, stop this, don't do this.
Right.
And he at the end of that scene says, but we can, and he sits her down and she sits with him, and there's definitely no resolve there from her. She's just like, what the fuck? I don't know that this is a good idea, and I want to trust you, because you do see the world as it is.
Right.
But how much have you been brought under Thomas's spell?
Right.
Like how much do you know the risk of this? And then Thomas gets taken away and suddenly Flint is McGraw is there.
Yeah, I know. It's hard. It's really hard. I know. That's why I'm taken to just saying James. It's much easier.
James. And he's just like, we're going. I know exactly where we're going. And then they're gone. You know, by that morning, they're gone. Right. And her life has changed completely. Yeah. And it's not the three of them. It's in the wake of this devastating loss. It's not on their own terms. It's not, it feels like they're running from something. They're not going towards something.
Yes.
And that's always a bad way to start a journey, I think. Yeah. I think that James would see it a different way. For him, he was going towards something. But I think Miranda was kind of just caught up in it. And I think there also can be no doubt that as much as well, for me anyway, this is the way I saw it, as much as Miranda understood the connection between Thomas and James, I think that she was in love with James. And I think that she was always in love with him. I think that and I think that probably that was why she continued to stay there, and then the loss of Thomas also. When someone dies, then they become greater, right, don't they?
Right.
They get idealized, and you also look for something to fight for in a situation like they were in, which was isolated, and she was away from everything. I mean, if you think about the woman that she was a libertarian. She was a free thinker. She was part of a new wave of philosophers and people engaging with radical ideas about life and who you could be and sexuality, and she was like right at the edge of all of that, and then she was taken to this backwater. Or the part of it that she was in was a backwater anyway.
Absolutely.
The pirates may have been living this wonderful free kind of life, but she wasn't part of that.
Right.
She was living with deeply traditional conservative people inland, where she was shunned, and she was she was amongst people who probably were illiterate. Other than there were probably not a lot of other women who could read and write there, and so so she was very isolated, and I think to believe in the dream was to give her purpose.
Yes,
that kind of got her through. And I think perhaps her rationalizing and her love of James, rationalizing what he was doing and her love of him, allowed her to increased her belief in the dream.
Right.
But it also became the thing by which she measured what James was becoming.
Right.
This ideal and this sense of him departing further and further from it, and how he could rationalize that what he was doing was for the dream. And she was like, no, it's not. That's not what's happening here. Don't kid yourself.
Right. Yeah, I just did a rewatch, and the line of his that really stuck with me. We talked a lot in the flash, like when we were talking about season 2 and talking about the flashbacks. We talked about both of them once they lost Thomas, kind of getting frozen in a way, in the place that they were right before they lost him. Yeah. And kind of like spinning their wheels and like not being able to like move forward until near the end when Miranda learns about Abigail. And for James, I had always thought it was about revenge. And then for me, what stood out in my last rewatch, especially after getting through season 4 and kind of seeing where James goes, the line that stood out for me is at the dinner table with Alfred Hamilton, and when he says to Thomas, "You're a good man. More people should say that, and someone should defend it." And then I started to kind of rethink that maybe he had this mistaken idea that all of the things he was doing was like some sort of defense of Thomas's dream, like not just trying to actualize his dream, but trying to defend it, which kind of made a little bit more sense for me. I mean, again, he's not been in a rational place for most of Black's house. There are a lot of things you can say about Flint. Rational, he says it a lot. He likes to say he's rational, but
no, but he's definitely being guided by something
right.
irrational.
So that kind of occurred to me, but Miranda, I know we just have a lot of sympathy for Miranda. I mean, it's just. Yeah, I think, my first question before we jumped in and started talking about all sorts of other stuff is like a choose your own adventure, because somehow Hannah talked about that for Eleanor, and yesterday John talked about that for Max. Like, but I don't know if it's even a relevant question now that I'm thinking about it for Miranda. Like, Miranda, I would love for Miranda to have chosen an adventure. I mean, all the characters seem to be very stuck in the storylines that they were, and that's part of their challenge, is how to unstick themselves. But Miranda kind of did that, but then died.
And I mean, and I know that for John and Robert and the writers' room, they worked very hard to try and find a different outcome for Miranda. Like they struggled with, like, where can we take this? Like what? And I was kind of like, no, but surely we can find something. Like, don't you need her? Doesn't Flint need her? Doesn't he?
And of course he did. Yeah.
But the answer is no. It was the only thing that could happen. If you've got to get to this point, which you do because you're a prequel to another show, right?
Right. He needed to lose Miranda to have the bond with Silver. It was that simple. I think Luke said that specifically. Luke gave us a list of basically characters who had to die so that Flint would actually pay attention to Silver.
Stop listening to her. Come with me. Yeah. So I think that it was she served her purpose, and I think that moment before she died, where she was able to own her anger and actually and also let Flint know what it had been for her. Because I don't think, there's a scene, after the dreadful sex scene, there was that scene where she said, I can feel myself losing hold of what our life used to be and losing him, and I don't want to do that. And then she becomes active in trying to find a way out, probably for the first time. She writes the letter, and she, and she sort of collaborates somewhat with Guthrie and sets in motion this some kind of end game. But that she's never fully told Flint James what this has done to her,
right.
what the sacrifice was, because you have that in relationships with people where you're the one holding the reins.
Yeah,
they're the one who goes crazy and mad, and you're the one holding the reins. And if you're the one holding the reins, you don't get to get angry and lose it, because no one's going to hold the reins for you. So, and in that final scene before she died, she was like, I'm letting go of these reins, and I'm just beating the horses. I want to go as fast as I possibly can. Like, enough. So it was cathartic in a sense as well. For her, it was like, this is what happened to my life. Yes. And I'm not letting anything happen to me anymore. And then she dies.
Right. And then she dies.
Yeah. But, and perhaps that brings us back to the dream sequences as well, where there's a sense of, I've done all I could do alive. Like I didn't choose to die, but my role now is something else. And I can't, maybe it's easier for you to think of dying because I'm on the other side, but it's not that easy this time. This time you need to figure out what you need to do in this life. Or, I don't know, whatever.
No, that totally makes sense.
Caught up in the whole thing.
No, this is welcome to Fathoms Deep. This is what we do.
This is what we do.
This is exactly what we do. No, it is very amazing. So I know Liz wanted to ask you. Liz, do you want to ask about Lambrick, about Miranda with Lambrick? Like, I see, I feel like that's such a big part of this stalled place that Miranda's in season 1.
And that's something I have not yet gone back and listened to that.
To us
podcast.
Talking about this.
And I feel like, again, like the woman I was then is such a far cry from who I am now. Like, I shudder to think what I said. I shudder to think. Although
you called them to task for representations of religious characters in a way that I thought was very appropriate at the time, to be honest.
Good.
Yeah.
That's good, I suppose. Anyway, I suppose I always wondered about Miranda's intentions with Pastor Lambrick. If I had this, I remember thinking at the time, and again, and now I wish I'd rewatched everything, because again, I've changed so much, it's hard to even imagine. But I wonder what her motivations were. If she was trying to give him some sort of freedom, if part of her was punishing him, if she was just so goddamn lonely. I just wonder what your thoughts were about that scene and
well, there's the two scenes. There's the tea and Bible reading, and then there's the sex.
Yeah. So I think that we said before how isolated she is, and for her books and engaging in conversation, stimulating kind of dissection of literature and ideas, and that was a big part of who she was in London. And there were probably very few outlets for that. So Lambrick, she was also shunned by the community that she was with because of her associations with Flint, this idea that she was a witch of some sort.
Right.
So the fact that she could foster a relationship with him, I think on a very basic level, it was about human connection. So it was, thank God, I can actually talk to someone and they'll listen to me and they'll be kind to me. They'll see me.
Right.
I think that in her world as Miranda Hamilton, there was a lot of kind of mental sparring that went on as well.
Yes.
There was, and so she can't help but do that with him, with Lambrick. And the fact that it was over the Bible, I don't think is specific. I don't think she was attacking the Bible. I think she
I think she had great respect for Song of Solomon in particular and Song of Songs and which I do as well. And I think that scene in particular, I think she was trying to open his mind in a gentle, coaxing but challenging way. She was doing that. I think that the sex, I think that it was
I mean, I suppose you could say there was an element of corrupting him, but I don't think it was that. I think it was.
That doesn't seem like Miranda to corrupt.
No, I think that there was. I mean, she speaks just before they have sex. She speaks about. She speaks about her life before. Mm-hmm. She speaks about Thomas.
Right.
So I think that there's a connection there that for her she's bringing two worlds together. Mm-hmm. I don't think you can say that Lambrick is blameless. He's drawn to her. He comes to her in the middle of the night.
No, you know? I think I've always thought on some level she's a little bit shaming him, and he totally deserves it. And I mean, not really does. I mean, I think for me, the sadness is that the person she can have human connection with, because James is so busy doing what he's doing. The person she can have connection with is a guy who's pretending he wants to, talk intellectually with her, but really just wants to have sex with her. Yeah. And that's just the saddest thing in the world, that this person is pretending to come and be that person for her, but really he and she finally calls him on it. And that's the part of, I think, the conversation that Liz and I had where we were kind of like working that out. It's just like, God, she must be angry. How could she not be angry? We finally see it in season 2, but like, she's how could she not be angry?
I'd never thought of it like that.
How could she not be angry all the time? I mean, it's like, Flynn shows up bloody, she's bandaging him, and he's like, okay, gotta go, and Miranda's like, wait, stay a little bit. He's like, no, I gotta go, but I'm gonna bring you this like really horrible guy, and he's gonna and you have to take care of him now. It's just like, how could she not be angry, like just low level angry every minute of her day,
resentful?
But also just which you brought up now, and I hadn't thought of that she's having this sort of intellectual relationship with the underlying flirtation, and for women that was power at that time. I don't think Miranda particularly liked to indulge it, because for her she felt like her power lay somewhere else. Right. But I mean, in that situation, it's must have been quite nice to still feel attractive.
Right. Absolutely.
So she's playing with it, but then for it to be reduced to sex, it's like, oh, right. So you're here in the middle of the night. Why are you here? Don't come with this. This is what you want, isn't it? This is what you want. Well, then have it and live with the consequences.
Have it. It'll be really. Have it. It'll be really short, because I've now unmasked you for.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
For the base person you really are. I mean, that was just like I felt like he was always holding over her, even though he would come there, and even though he would want her opinion on his sermons, some part of him was always holding over her this idea that he was better than her. Which which essentially Eleanor came and did a little bit later too, and she got a good talking to from her. I mean, I really, when I rewatch, like the more I rewatch, I feel like the more actually, I mean, this is why it's really hard to talk about Miranda, because I feel like every rewatch I feel for Miranda more and more and more. And I think the process of us talking so much about Miranda during the podcast has really deepened that even. But it's like, this poor woman, she's amazing. She's amazing.
Such an extraordinary woman.
She's stuck in this house. And Otis is like, right. It's like Flint shows up for a little bit here and there. Okay. And then he like brings her a book, which is their version of him bringing her flowers after treating her poorly. And, which also is like really, it's like you can see the book that he brings her as this really beautiful callback to the past, but it's also a really empty callback to the past, because they had this richness of their lives in London, and to bring her Cervantes in this world as a, like, I'm sorry, I was being an asshole, is, that's just such an empty version, it's such an empty echo of what they actually had with each other once. Yeah. And then, right, so she's got Lambrick with like all of his stuff that it's like people just like dump stuff on Miranda's door. It's like he dumps his lust. Yeah. Flint dumps his need to like drink tea every once in a while and pretend he's not a pirate for a few minutes.
Yeah. Oh, God.
Eleanor comes and like dumps, like the one woman that Eleanor probably should actually make friends with. The one woman who could have given Eleanor perhaps a little perspective about herself. Like, especially, again, watch season 4, you'll meet Grandma Guthrie, and that'll explain to you why I'm saying this now. But the one woman that maybe could have helped Eleanor actually find possibly a slightly new direction for herself. Like, what does Eleanor do? She like comes and yells at her. And like nobody gets who Miranda is. Like Lambrick doesn't, Eleanor obviously doesn't. Like nobody's seeing her. I mean, that was, you just said it, which I love, because that's what Liz has always said, was that Flint just didn't see her, didn't love her well. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, in that scene, I'm thrilled and also mortified that I wasn't able to realize it when I was playing the scene.
Except you did it, but you expressed it, even if you weren't seeing it intellectually. You totally expressed it beautifully.
Well, the thing that I was working off at the time, I should just say, no, I meant it. I just said it, right?
No, I want to hear. I mean, this is what's so fun. This is what's so fun. It's so fun to hear different perspectives on the same scene. It's the best.
My whole thing was that she was connecting with that side of her that wasn't about judgment. That was about saying it's okay to have these feelings.
Yeah,
right. It's okay to have these, and it doesn't make you an awful person. It doesn't. And reconnecting with that side of herself.
Yes.
Right. And it's what took her to a place where she could realize and articulate, not realize, I think she knew it all along, but articulate to James, this is what you're fighting. You're fighting the shame.
Right.
That's even though that was in season 1, and she only comes,
Absolutely.
It's a couple of days later, right? In their story, it's a couple of days later, where she says to him, it's your shame that you're fighting, that's what, and so she was reconnecting in that stuff with Lambrick. She was reconnecting with what it means. And she was living her doctrine, she was saying,
yes,
you judge me, because she knew that he would judge her. She would be cast as the evil woman.
Right.
And she was opening a window for him to say, I'm not evil and you're not evil either. Right. This is okay. That was where I was coming from. I was being a lot more magnanimous. I wasn't.
Well, and that's what, and really I'm able to see that more now on this side of my personal journey. I'm able to see that more now when I couldn't at the time, because it had always been, sex had been used very much as a weapon in the hands of both religion and those who were trying to sometimes well-meaning, and this is how I saw Miranda at the time, like in a well-meaning way, but being like, you're judging me about the way I view sex, but really your way is wrong, which is still judgment. So we're just trading judgment back and forth. Right. So that was hard for me to see it as anything other, because it's how I had experienced it in my life. But knowing Miranda like I do now, or like I feel that I do now, I think you're absolutely right, Louise, that for her it was not that she was trying to
punish him or
right, that it was in no way punitive or and of course she wants shame to be the ultimate enemy.
Right.
So I think I had this almost a dream, almost prayer thing. I don't know, but this awareness that came to me the other day when I was thinking about the myth of the Garden of Eden and the fig leaves and this idea of shame, and that the fruit from the tree was the knowledge of good and evil. So really the fruit from the tree is shame. It's knowing or feeling that you've done something wrong. It's a feeling of guilt. Like that's the ultimate enemy that I think God wants to protect people from, you from shame and guilt. That's not true. That's not real. That is just someone else's
fabrication. It's a fabrication.
Yes.
That was created for all sorts of other reasons, right?
Right. Absolutely.
And also because we fear our primal urges. So, make them shameful, make them undesirable, make them wrong.
As though they were the enemy of civilization and what? And polite.
As though they were shadows cast by civilization.
But also denying or not acknowledging the fact that we can be many things at once.
Yes,
exactly.
And that just because we choose to be something at one point doesn't mean it's all of who we are and that it can consume us. Right. We can be all of these things, and we need to trust that we are fully rounded enough that we can be these different things at different times, and not one of them will take over.
Yep.
And that in that scene with Lambrick, she could have been doing both of those things.
Exactly.
She could have been saying, "Feel no shame."
She's a complicated woman.
Yeah.
Well, she is definitely. Yes, she could absolutely be trying to spread the world of no shame, and at the same time be acting out on her own aggravation. I mean, that's those, we are complex beings and we are capable of all of that at the same time. And if,
absolutely,
if any story is a great reflection of how complicated we are in those ways, it would be Black Sails.
Absolutely.
No, and I do love that this does, I mean, I just joked about it, but this does bring us to, in our world, I think this is of my doing. We call it the dragon speech, or I call it the dragon speech. Yes, it's Flint's speech in 410. And I feel like that is the moment he finally learns that lesson. Like, even though he went through a process and Miranda handed him the book and he, and told him to not be ashamed, and he remembered that Thomas had told him.
Yeah.
But he does integrate it at the end. At the very end, he finally gets it. He finally learns that lesson, and then takes that in a direction where he actually expands it to include people who are marginalized for all sorts of reasons. And that's actually, I mean, that's what's amazing. What is amazing is that Miranda left James in phases. I kind of like the fraying rope idea. Like, it's not the fraying tether, not the broken tether, but she never really left him. Like, I think that when he told Silver the story was when he started the process of actually learning the lesson she wanted to teach him.
Yeah. So you mean in 310?
That's 310. But telling somebody the story was like the first phase of him realizing that he doesn't need shame.
Yeah, but you have to do that, right?
Right.
You have to actually speak it. You can't just think it or feel it. You've actually got to. It's in speaking it that it becomes real. That it's.
Okay, Louise, now I really want you to watch season 4, and then we can talk about that again. Because that has all sorts of implications with Flint and Silver all through season 4.
Right. Okay.
Someday we'll have to talk about speaking about your shame and your backstory.
Yeah. No, for sure. I could do this forever. I mean, I'm not going to say, oh, let's move on. As much as I've tried to, it's still, I'm like, okay, I'll talk about Black Sails whenever anyone asks. But I saw I saw the first episode of season 4, and then saw the last one, and kind of felt like, oh shit, I should have watched season 4. And, we had just immigrated to the States, and we have a daughter, and we were, dealing with all the stuff of getting her settled and just reinventing our lives, bank accounts and, electricity accounts and all of that stuff.
Yeah. The stuff that you need to live in a place.
Yeah. So it just didn't happen. But watching the last episode, it still all made sense. It's still, I mean, I was desperate to know how it had got to that place. Yeah. But I mean, there were ties in that had been, the two pieces had been shown to you in episode 1 of season 1.
Absolutely. You're speaking our language. We've been saying this all along, that the ground was set for all of this in the very beginning.
And just to take it to maybe to change that metaphor a little bit, is that it feels almost like it's not that they were tying up loose ends, because that would have felt trite.
Right.
It was like you've got this ball of wool, and you've got one piece over here and one piece over here, and you find that they're actually connected. They're not two separate pieces. I love
that. That's beautiful.
They weren't cut, like they were just the same part of the same thing. They were just in a big muddle, and you didn't know how it fit together. And then you're like, oh, this is that they're actually the same piece.
Yeah, so I love that.
Yeah. Good. I just came up with it right now.
It's perfect. Beautiful. That's the best metaphor. I love it.
No, it is. It's really fantastic. Yeah, it is.
I'm looking now. Lauren, I asked Lauren if she had a question for you. I'm looking to see what it was. Nope, we covered. Nope. Yeah, she wanted to know if Miranda loved James, and you talked about that already. Yeah, it seems to be an interesting question. Everyone wants to know what form the love is, like if it's romantic love or just like devotion, or.
I think she was totally in love with him. I mean, I think that she was. I think she was intrigued by him at the beginning, and I think that she absolutely fell in love with him. And I think the fact that the process of her having to accept that the love that he shared with Thomas was something different and better.
Yeah.
Was hard, but it didn't mean that she didn't stop loving him.
Oh, right. Well, that is one of the questions we had from a listener a long time ago, which has kind of been everyone's question. Does he want to say hello officially on the podcast?
Do you want to say hello officially on the podcast? Oh, sure. He just bought me more supplies, coffee.
Oh, wonderful. Yes.
What do I say?
Oh, right. Sorry, I need to give you a
Hey, Nick.
Hey, how's it going?
All right. So just for our listeners, we are now chatting with Louise and with Nick, who you all know as Lord Peter Ashe.
Hey, it's great to be here. I can't quite believe I'm kind of barging in on my wife's podcast, but
it's just your style, really.
It's kind of my style, I guess.
Well, you know, you did play a guy who kind of betrayed everyone, and we'll never forgive you for it. But we like you personally.
That's the way I like it. That's okay.
He likes playing baddies.
Yeah,
it's much more fun to play baddies.
Right now, I'm rehearsing for a small movie that I'm doing this weekend that I get to play a serious baddie. So, it's all good. It's all good.
Is it disturbing to watch? You're making faces. Is it disturbing to watch your husband play someone really horrible?
This bad, yeah.
This bad, yeah. This
Whoa.
is horrible bad. This is not like, this is horrible bad. Yeah.
Oh, God. Okay.
I'm intrigued. Okay,
I might not watch that one. That's usually not for me.
Nick, will you tweet at us when that movie comes out so we can tell everyone to go watch it?
I totally will. Absolutely.
If anyone had any doubts about Peter Ashe, they're gonna. It's just all sewn up for them in this.
Right.
In this role.
If I was teetering on the edge for anybody, it's like I just fell into the black pit.
Well, no. Again, I mean, Peter Ashe is despicable in his own way. I mean, he's no Ned Lowe or something like that. He's not.
Right. Exactly.
He's a weak man who.
He's right. He's despicable, but not evil. And it's actually interesting. In our roundtable, we just actually discussed, one of our friends, Andrew Dice, brought up the fact that evil is probably never said. That word is probably never used in Black Sails.
Really?
Darkness.
Darkness, but not evil.
That's
not
interesting.
Evil. Isn't that interesting?
It is. Yeah, it really is. I think, and I think that speaks a lot to what they were trying to say about darkness and light and shadow and that everyone is human. That's basically what it comes down to. Yeah.
Yeah. When I took on the role of Peter Ashe, I think one of the first conversations I had with the writers was, that it was exactly that. There is no sort of sense of, oh, well, this guy's completely evil. This guy, where do you pitch him? Well, just pitch him where the writing is, which is you play the scene from your character point of view. You were doing what was right for your character at the time. For my daughter, for my wife, I was making decisions at that time that were correct. But in hindsight, they were obscene.
Yes.
And I think that was what was so beautiful about working on that show is just the complexity and the layeredness of it. It's just beautiful.
I do have actually a Peter Ashe question now that I'm thinking about it. I was just thinking about this in my I've been doing a rewatch after finishing season 4 to kind of see how things look differently. Okay, we know that Peter Ashe betrayed them, obviously. But was he betraying them from the beginning? Like when he first stepped up to them and said, "How can I help?" Was he doing that as like a spy from the inside? Was he trying to sabotage them from the beginning, or was he legitimately working with them and then Alfred Hamilton turned him?
My feeling is that he was legitimately working with them. I think that he was inspired. I think that he was reading the mood of the time as well. I think he was excited by what was happening. But I think like any politician, because I think ultimately Peter Ashe is a politician, I think that he was swayed by not just the money and not just the buy-off, but also the kind of idea that perhaps I'd got ahead of myself. Perhaps, these guys were not exactly what they had said that they were.
Sure.
And perhaps these ideas, these risky ideas, were not worth risking my own family, my own career.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And also, like a politician, there was an opportunity to advance and to sell out my comrades. And I think that that's the opportunity that he took. And again, it wasn't dastardly. It was just a political move that he never thought would come back to haunt him, which of course,
or that it would result in so much pain and suffering, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I had no knowledge that it would,
Right.
for me, it was just, it was ideas that were never going to go anywhere.
Right.
So I had to kind of say, come on, guys, these ideas are crazy. These are revolutionary.
Let's be realistic. Yeah.
Let's be realistic. Exactly. And how much pain and suffering has been caused in history from people saying, let's be realistic.
Okay, I love that you two have. But you have seen the season finale of season 4 because those words you just said could have come out of Silver's mouth. I mean, that's the connection I just was making. Was that Peter Ash? I mean, again, different things that he did in this, but there is a kernel of that same motivation to protect. In the face of revolutionaries, to say, wait a minute, this is scary and possibly unrealistic. So why should I risk my family, my comfort, my loved ones for the sake of this thing?
Yeah, but then also to go, so who are the people who are prepared to do that, and what are they driven by?
Right.
And what was, would James have been prepared to do it if he hadn't had Thomas taken from him and have nothing left to lose? You know?
No, absolutely.
Like, if you've got things that you can lose, are you prepared to?
We definitely need to have that conversation after you all watch season 4, and we can talk about Maddie in the context of that.
Maddie. Oh, damn. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Cool.
Oh man. Yeah.
Well, listen,
seriously.
I'm going to leave you because I know that you want to get on with her, but thank you for allowing me into your podcast there.
Thank you for popping in. It's lovely to meet
lovely
you.
to meet you guys.
Thank you.
My podcast anytime, baby.
I have a question about Miranda that I've often wondered, and it was something we speculated about when we did the podcast On the Scene. And I just wonder if it was a choice that you made as an actress, or if it was a choice maybe that was directorial. But at the time that James first, or I guess it's the other way around, at the time that Thomas first kisses James, Miranda looks down and away. Yeah. And I wondered why that was.
We shot it a couple of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. One of them was her just watching it, and then that felt just too kind of voyeuristic.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. The way that I felt it as Miranda was that there was an inevitability to it. There was no judgment in it, and there was sadness in it. In that, and it was a personal sadness. It was that she had lost these two men. She's lost them to each other. So there was for her it was a very sad moment. She wasn't looking ahead. She wasn't thinking about them, and what would lie ahead for them. I think it was just a turning away from an incredibly profound, beautiful moment that she could see. There was a connection that was being made there that she didn't feel she had a right to witness. That they did it in front of her, I guess, is testimony to the kind of relationship that they all had.
That's how I saw that,
which is amazing. But personally, for her, I think it was two things. It was she looks away because it's an intimate moment that she didn't feel that she should watch.
Right.
And also that it was a sense of loss for her. That there was she was losing.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, she was losing them.
So was she, I know that she loved and revered and respected Thomas very much. Mm-hmm. Would you say that she was in love with him equally as James, or was that different?
I don't know. When the whole sort of backstory was given to us, which was right at the beginning of season 1, it was Toby and I we both knew what was going to happen,
right?
In season 2, and I sort of had in my mind, oh God, okay, well, they're going to be sort of threesomes, and it's going to be like this thing that they were these very sort of sexually free people, and they were threesomes and orgies, and like this is what they did, and it wasn't that. I'm grateful that it wasn't that, but that's not to say that there wasn't a physical relationship between the three of them. I don't know. We never actually really talked about it, and I don't know that. I don't know. There we go. I don't know if she was in love with Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
I think she loved him deeply, and she felt incredibly protective towards him. And she also felt
she
like
was his wife. Yeah.
And she needed to protect him from the world.
Yeah.
I mean, she said as much, that she needed to shield him from, because he was someone who kind of just was so idealistic that he couldn't necessarily predict or anticipate the dangers that his thoughts and feelings and his way of being could induce. So I think that, I don't think it was a romantic love.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't know. I mean, it'd be interesting to speak to someone who is in a relationship with, and I also don't know that Thomas was necessarily gay. I think he was just someone whose sexuality was fluid,
Mm-hmm. Sure.
As was Flint's, and it was about falling in love with a person, not their gender necessarily. So, yeah, I don't know. That's something to think about.
I'm really happy that it was left in a place where it could be different possibilities, because I think that they, as a group of three, as a relationship of people, I love that there was some amount of openness to what the actual configuration of all of that was. Like we needed for James to obviously be having a sexual relationship with each of them. Yeah. Because he's not married to them. So we needed to see that needed to be established. But anything outside of that, I really appreciate that it was left to our imaginations to some extent, because it allows everyone to kind of identify with them in a way, just on, wherever the viewer is on personally on the spectrum, or also just ideologically on the spectrum, or story-wise on the spectrum. It allows us to feel a connection to these three people who were so phenomenal. We're such phenomenal people having a phenomenal relationship, obviously.
Yeah. So it wasn't about sex. It was about that, as you say, the sex was there to establish the kind of relationship, but it didn't define the relationships. It was about three human beings. And I love the way that the episode 5 of season 2, how the scenes were edited together. That there's the scene with Miranda coming to Thomas and saying, "I'm going to leave," and he's like, "But why? So you're having an affair with him? Why is that such a big deal?" So the audiences are like, "Oh wow, he's cool with it. Oh okay, he knows." Like,
right? She said that, but now we believe her.
and then she says, "No, I'm not worried about that relationship." And then she goes deeper and she says, "I'm not worried about them knowing about that relationship. I'm worried about the other relationship." And people are like, "Huh?
What?"
Yeah. And then only they show the kiss.
Right.
And that she's that it shows that she is, it's not the relationship that she has an issue with. It's the danger that it poses for them, and that there's a sense that they're looking out for, or that she has taken on the role of looking out for the two of them. Absolutely. Because they're just completely blinded by the idealism of this thing that they're doing, and by their relationship with each other, and they're kind of caught up in it and
intoxicated.
Intoxicated.
Isn't that Miranda said that we continue to use that term to describe a lot of things in Black Sails, but that is Miranda. That is actually Miranda's line, right?
Yeah. It's intoxicating. Yeah.
It is indeed. Wow, that's so. What a beautiful character.
And I love that she does seem so much to be fighting for, despite her personal pain, because that is what I saw too when she looked down. That there was a personal pain in that, but that she, throughout the series, has been fighting so much for just the virtue of love, and against, again, that hard enemy of shame. and to see her consistently trying to protect these two men that she loves so much, even knowing that it was causing her personal pain and strife and stress on a number of different levels, not only because of worry and fear for them, but a sense of not jealousy exactly, but
her own unfulfilled, that her desires are unfulfilled, that her, I mean, there's that moment in, I think it's at the end of 5 as well. It was a big episode, season 2, episode 5. So there's that where you're back in present day, and she's saying to Flint, because he's Flint,
right? Yes,
she's saying, you need to, I can't even remember exactly what she's saying, but he just says, the only thing I regret. So she's saying, you can't regret, you need to regret. He says, the only thing I regret, I listened to you and
so
didn't go back and save him. And she's just like,
I know. But she's so gracious to then give him that book.
And gives him the book.
Oh my God, she's amazing.
She really is like a hero. She really is such an extraordinary character. God.
Yeah, he does not deserve what she does for him there, and she does it anyway.
Yeah. But it gives her the leverage in the next few scenes later. Yeah. When he says, "Okay, you can go back now. I'm going to sort this out," and she's like, Right. I'm not going anywhere. This is not. We can't do this alone. Or separately. This needs to.
Right.
I need to step up, and you need.
Oh, that's interesting, because that is kind of the moment when Miranda becomes active. Like, could we say that maybe her giving him that grace of, even though he's being an ass, her giving him that book and saying, I'm not really going to take no for an answer from you right now of me teaching you this lesson, might that have been the thing that kind of reactivated her in a way that she then, I mean, for me, I think back then I said that it was them both like finally talking, because we have no, like, Miranda refers to Thomas kind of vaguely, like this isn't what he wanted, things like that. But there was a sense that perhaps this was the first time in a very long time that they actually really talked about it.
Talked about him, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Really, really talked about it. And so that I think I said back then that was the thing that kind of got them both moving forward again. Like that they were able to then be a coalition of two, even though their third person was no longer there. But maybe that was what got Miranda going, was that she did something truly active. She left the house.
Yeah, and that was what I was going to say. Is that it was in those moments before that. It was Pastor Lambrick coming and saying this terrible thing has happened, and Lord Ash and this, and then suddenly it's like, okay, this is. She knows, she can hear the explosions and everything, so she knows what's going on there, and she realizes this is her time to act.
Yeah,
and also because she has a clear path forward. I mean, she had those conversations with Eleanor where she's like, I can't change his mind.
Right.
You think I can change? I can't change his mind. If you know him at all, I can't change his mind. And then she sees a way forward. Suddenly it kind of clicks into place, and she's going, and she's going to go, and she's going to, this is what, this is her opportunity to try and it feels so right.
Right.
That it's Ash, and that there's this girl, and it's just like, this is perfect.
It seems so hopeful.
It did.
Yes.
They set us up, those bastards.
Yeah, sorry. Those characters were set up 10 years before that. They were never bound to succeed, sadly.
No. Yeah, so I think that she was, that was the moment that she kind of, she reinserted herself into the dream, perhaps, and also selfishly, because she saw a way out. Like that's the whole thing of being frozen and being stuck and being. So now,
and they did that so beautifully visually too, with the way that her costuming and her makeup and everything was so bright and saturated when she was in London, and how washed out she was the entire time she was in Nassau.
Yeah.
Which is also like realistic because she wouldn't have been wearing that stuff or had access to, well, I guess Max had access to it.
It's true.
So
yeah.
she could have gotten it.
She could have gotten it.
But that would have been really weird. I mean, she already stood out so much in the interior, but then to like be wearing like also, bright colored clothing.
They were fugitives, right?
Right.
They were fugitives from, because they couldn't give away their whereabouts, so she couldn't be Lady Hamilton. She had
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, and there was no place for a Lady Hamilton on that island. There was no.
That's also true.
Right.
Yeah, that's also
New Providence Island had no space for that. And Nassau, because the frontier doesn't really have a space for that. Being Lady Hamilton, as revolutionary as she was on the inside, she was existing within the system.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of like what Max became later on. That's interesting. That living within the system, but being personally revolutionary from the inside of it.
Yeah.
Now I wish that Max and Miranda had met.
I know, right? I mean, I spent the whole time thinking, I wish this character met, and I wish this character, like,
right.
Yes.
Because they just never did,
Right.
She was really isolated.
Yes, she was.
Yes. Oh, it's heartbreaking. Yeah.
I know, it is. Louise, I want to thank you both for coming on Fathoms Deep, which again was just the biggest, most wonderful surprise for us.
Yes.
Also, really thank you for expressing this character that means so much to the both of us. And so much to so many of our listeners. Can you tell us, I mean, poor Miranda met her fate a while ago in your time. Would you tell us what you've been doing since then? Because I know I would love to watch those things.
Okay, well, I did. The one really big thing I did, which was not necessarily directly work related, was that I moved from South Africa, where I was living, and filmed Black Sails, to the United States, and I'm now living in Los Angeles with Lord Ash and our daughter. So that was a big thing that happened after Black Sails for me. But fairly soon after arriving, I did a show called Outsiders on WGN. The second season of that, I did 6 episodes of that, playing a really fabulous character called Morrigan. Outsiders is about a group of people who live sort of off the grid. In the Appalachian Mountains.
Oh wow, that's my neck of the woods.
Yeah,
that's so cool.
Exactly. And I filmed it in Pittsburgh, in Pennsylvania. So
wow.
I spent a sort of couple of months filming there. Great character, very strong female character as well. So that was fabulous to play. And I must say, I'm quite looking forward to playing a sort of a bank teller or something.
Just take a breath.
Someone in jeans, as much as I love Miranda's costumes.
Oh my goodness!
I was dressed in leather as Morrigan. So
wow,
okay. Yeah, with
fascinating to watch right there.
Yes, there you go.
That's fantastic.
It was great. It was great fun to do. It's aired already, but obviously people don't necessarily watch TV that way anymore. So you can,
I'm definitely going to go watch it now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, enjoy.
Really only watched Black Sails for the past year, pretty much. So you get to watch other things now.
There's so much out there, right? There's just such a ton of stuff. And I can't wait to see what comes out of John and Robert and Dan next.
Nor can we.
Yeah.
We'll cover it, whatever it is.
Yep. We have well committed ourselves. We will podcast about whatever they do.
Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome. Yep. Brilliant. Well, thank you for just doing for creating this wonderful platform to just indulge in the depth of this show. It's a good name, Fathoms Deep, and I've loved listening to back issues of it, and I will continue to do so. And then, and to chat to you today has been really great. Revisiting Miranda, she's still alive and well. I sort of think I'm over her, and then I start talking about it, and it all tumbles out. So,
she's so wonderful.
Yeah. So thank you.
Imagine. Thank you. Yeah, this has been lovely.
Yeah, really lovely.
So until next time, thank you for listening. From Common Room Radio, I'm Elizabeth Stevens.
I'm Daphne Olive.
And I'm Louise Barnes.
Oh, thank you, sweetie.
Thank you. Bye.
Lovely.
So great to meet you.
Lovely to meet you too.
Take care.
Okay, you too. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Deep is a Common Room Radio production. For more information and access to other programs, please visit us at commonroomradio.com. To show your support, pledges of as little as $1 a month can be made to patreon.com/commonroomradio. Join the conversation by using the hashtag FathomsDeep and follow us on Twitter at BlackSalesCast. We ask that you keep your tweets respectful and positive, and please avoid spoilers. If you have more to say, we want to hear it in all its spoiler glory. Email us at podcast@commonroomradio.com with Fathoms Deep in the subject line. Thanks for listening.